Om Shri Sai Ram. By Bhagwan's divine grace and Sankalpa, we have with us today one of India's most respected individuals, Shri Swaminathan Gurumurthy. He is one of India's very well-known professional chartered accountants and a respected and sought-after corporate advisor as a person of great integrity and competence. He is also highly regarded as an investigative journalist, a writer, and a social activist. He was rated as the 17th most powerful person in India by India Today magazine. However, he never derived his extraordinary power from any formal position that he occupied in the government or in any organization. His influence rests on the status that he enjoys as a person and writer of high integrity and exceptional courage. On the contrary, far from using his powers for personal gain, he declined all positions that were offered to him by different organizations and governments. Hamish MacDonald also says in his book that Gurumurthy had a strong sense of probity. Sri Gurumurthy has preferred to do basic work like molding public opinion on issues of national importance and original studies on the community linkages on India's economic model. He has traveled across the country and with his team of professionals and academics in the Swadeshi Jagaran Manch studied over 40 community-driven industrial clusters in the last 20 years. He regularly contributes columns in leading newspapers like The Hindu, The Business Line, The New Indian Express, and others on issues of critical importance to society and the country. Sri Gurumurthy is also a guest faculty and distinguished professor at the School of Management in IIT Bombay and several other universities. He is also a keen student of philosophy and religion and has derived much inspiration and guidance from the Shankaracharya Mahapiriva, sage of Kanchipuram. We are grateful to Bhagwan that he has motivated Sri Gurumurthy to be with us today. I now invite Sri Gurumurthy to address us. Jai Sai Ram.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I can't really find adequate words to express my inner and deeper emotion when I am standing before all of you. It's my great fortune, for which I don't know where the grace came from. I certainly don't deserve it to be here before all of you on this occasion and to share my thoughts on the relevance of the message of Swami in the present context. To be invited to talk in such an occasion, it has to be Swami's grace. And in my case, Swami's grace came first, and I began experiencing him later. It's actually the other way around in the case of most of you. But that is how grace comes. Sri Ramakrishna says, God seems irrational in bestowing grace on the people. So I am one such person who received the grace of Swami first, and if I have occasion, I will share my first experience of Swami. We listen to Vedas and then music. You know, the power of Veda is, it is Nada Brahmam, as they say. And music and Veda are the most elevating communications which this ancient nation gave to the rest of the world. Speech is a very poor substitute. But by speaking, you can influence the mind of a person. But you cannot influence the character and the inner being except through a higher communication like Vedas and music, which you have heard. But it is also a practical world which we have to deal with. And so we have to understand the world at large. What is the mission of India? Why was Swami born in India? Why were great men, an endless stream of great men through the ages for thousands of years, why did they take birth in this ancient land? What is the message it has to give? And what is its inner being? And it is in this perspective, in the past, in the present, and what is likely to be the future, I had an occasion to have a glimpse of Swami's thoughts, which I thought I would share with you. The occasion is very profound and sacred. The audience is erudite and committed. And the speaker has to rise up to the occasion to match both. And I think Swami will put me on the escalator to do both. My first experience of Swami was through a total externally induced accident of someone from America calling me repeatedly for months and asking me, you must go and meet Swami for this purpose, the nation is in danger. And you have to meet him. I said, it's not that I can meet Swami or anybody can meet Swami. He must will that we must meet him. This is what I have heard. But he would not leave me. He said there are such series of accidents in the Indian Air Force. MiG fighters were crashing almost month after month. Nearly 14 fighters had crashed and many pilots died in a period of 18 months. And he said, this has to be stopped. And he gave a very peculiar reason. He said that a country hostile to India is doing black magic on the Indian Air Force, and that is what is causing accidents. And he has done tremendous amount of research in black magic. And the only person who can stop this is Swami. You have to go and meet. You call yourself a nationalist. You are not doing it. I don't know, 3 months, 4 months, every third day, fourth day, he would call me from America. Then I asked my friend, Mr. Venu Srinivasan, he was the only person who I thought could link me to Swami. And I told him, Venu, this is such a pressure on me, I don't know how to avoid him. And it is a fact that so many fighter aircrafts are crashing. Then Venu said, I don't know whether he can meet you or he will. But be prepared, 3 days you must be available. Every day morning we will go and sit. And if what your friend says is true and legitimate and he sincerely feels and you are the instrument to communicate this, Swami will certainly call you. I said, even then I am a human being. I said, Swami will call, but you must also see that Swami calls me. So we came and sat for 3 days. 3 days we decided to sit. First day Swami came and just he walked away. I was so disappointed and despondent. The next day when Swami came and he left, I pulled up Venu and Venu stood up and said, Swami, my friend has come to communicate something very critical for the country. Then Swami asked us to come. We went inside. And there were many people. I was observing. I didn't know Swami. I never experienced him. I only heard him from outside. And there were stories about his miracle, his capacity to address an endless stream of great men. And these are all from a distance. And Swami was materializing many things for different people. A hefty man was there. He materialized a huge ring for him. Another, a thin man was there. He materialized a small ring for him. So in my mind, I was questioning, how is it that materializing also matches the person, his body? And he called me near. And he materialized this ring and gave it to me. It fitted. Then he looked at me and asked me, does it fit you? So I knew he was reading into me. Then I went inside and told him, I told Swami, I have to communicate something very critical. And then Venu and me went inside and I shared with him what that friend, who I don't know, how he got my number, I don't know. He has been calling me from America. So I told Swami, this is what he sees under tremendous pressure. He puts me under tremendous pressure and he says only Swami can save. Then Swami went into contemplation for 2-3 minutes. And then said, ask your friend to forget now that he has communicated to me. And then after a few seconds, he said, I will give him a prasad. You go and give it to him. And he materialized a diamond ring. And it was a large ring. And I don't know the person who is going to wear it because I am only receiving his telephone calls. So I went back home. This is sometime in 2003. I don't know whether it is middle or end. And when I went home, he called me immediately. That night itself, I told him that this prasad has come, Swami has accepted. Within 72 hours, he came back. He landed in my house. You know, he was a 6-footer, hefty. The ring fitted him. I can't understand. This is completely beyond comprehension for an ordinary mind. You know, it's a dimensionless phenomenon. You cannot view it with the dimensions, even if you are multi-dimensional. You cannot get at it. This is the first message I got. And I don't know, this link was continuing. Different people were taking me. I was not taking any effort to go to Swami. He was pulling me. And finally, somewhere I felt an opportunity came for me to repay this in a very small measure. When after Swami attained Samadhi, when the media began doing all kinds of wrong reporting, that gave me an opportunity to study Swami's work. Till then I had not studied. I had looked at him, I had experienced him partly, I had heard about him, but I never knew the tremendous amount of work that is going on and the commitment that is going into it and the efficiency and the expedition with which things were being accomplished, which is unknown in the history of voluntary organizations. Then I studied what kind of people he has attracted. I asked Mr. Srinivasan, V. Srinivasan, please give me the story of how does he attract volunteers? He said, we have 6 lakh volunteers on our roll. I asked him, can you classify these volunteers as to where do they stand, what is their standing in the society? And he said, no, we will be able to not give the entire list, but I will try and give the partial information which I have. And then I wrote an article in the Indian Express in which I summarized the kind of talent he had attracted. Thousands of doctors, thousands of lawyers, thousands of chartered accountants who would normally not leave the profession of making money. Everybody was there. Musicians, businessmen. A businessman, IAS officer would give up his career and come and look after the conveniences here. A businessman running $1 billion business will come and look after a small project. And a software engineer will kick his huge career and look after the kitchen here. What does it attract? You know, these are all huge questions on which researches need to be done. It's not a cult. It's something far more serious. This is what made me wonder how this phenomenon is so special to India, so natural to India. It gets repeated in this country. It is in this perspective that I thought I would share my thoughts with you. You know, we are all here to recall Swami and not to glorify him. He doesn't need to be glorified. This is an occasion to recall him. And he wants what? I looked at a very small book, beautifully done, as to what he wants of us. We all want to praise him, celebrate him, see what he wants. Swami says, you celebrate my birthday on this day. This is one of the birthday celebrations of Swami. This is only another day in the calendar. You look at it as a special day. For him, it is another day in the calendar. My birthday in you is the day when you resolve to put into practice my advice and follow my directives. That is the birthday for me. And he says, I want publicity for the teachings and the message. See the next sentence. I want the tattva prachara, not vyakti prachara. We all look at Swami, but Swami has the message to give, and he wants us to look at the message. No doubt, the message comes out of the being of Swami, the experience of Swami. He imparts that conviction, commitment, that responsibility, and elevates us to perform. But he wants us to look at the message, imbibe that message, internalize that message. And he goes on to say, not you, just encourage your sons to realize the meaning of my mission. This is the continuity. This is the tradition which has sustained this country for thousands of years. Invasions, devastations. What kind of troubles and tribulations this civilization has not undergone. But as Swami Vivekananda says, if 5,000 years back Veda Vyasa was around and he came back today, he will see some of the road maps and also the situation that prevalent at the time, the same dress, the same Vedas, the same music. That continuity is denied to all other civilizations. Swami Vivekananda said the Roman eagle floated over everything worth having in this world. Now it is a mass of ruins. Spider weaves its web where the Caesars ruled. Egyptian civilization you can find only in the broken pyramids. But here is a living civilization. You know why? That is the message Swami gives. You impart it to your son. That is the Putra Parampara. Till Vyasa it was Putra Parampara. Afterwards it became Sishya Parampara. That's how this ancient tradition has been continuously maintained, despite everything, including the attack of modernity today, which has a very different meaning. This is what Swami says, that it is not to celebrate him, but to internalize him. And all of us have to become some kind of a light written with the Jyoti that he emitted. Swami is universal. His message is an ocean. In fact, I tried to grasp as many things as possible in the last couple of days I have been reading, and reading very extensively, and I read very carefully also. And you can't really present Swami in a lifetime. It will require several lives to understand. But one life is too inadequate. You can understand one day, one speech, how difficult it is. So, what I thought, I would present a particular dimension which I can see as someone who has experienced society, culture, economics, traditions, politics, society. I thought I would grasp an amalgam of this, how Swami's basic principles work in practice. It is not that Swami said something which was in heaven. He was doing an empirical understanding of the society and presenting it in a living form. That's what I am going to share with you. because this has been the area of my study for the last 20-25 years. And so I would think that I would capture Swami in that light. I looked at Swami's message, his followers. I saw a parallel between him and Sri Krishna. You take what Swami did. From miracles to mukti. The miracle was the entry point. And Swami says this is a visiting card. And he even materialized a visiting card for himself. And he said, this is irrelevant. Please don't look at it. Look beyond. I have something to tell you. I will take you to the Kurukshetra war. Two warring groups assembled in millions. They have a duty to fight and win for the cause which they believe to be right. And Arjuna suddenly develops confusion. The first chapter is Arjuna's confusion, despondency. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And he says, I won't fight. The hero is not fighting. Then Krishna begins to remove his confusion. And he calls him, you are neither a man nor a woman, are you a man? He attacks his lowest ego to provoke him. And then he teaches him Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, and then he reveals himself as the Almighty, and then carries on the discourse further. And in the 63rd sloka in the 18th chapter, he says, Itite jnanamahyadam guhya guhyadaram maya vimarshayeta tadeshene yatechasi tatakuru. I have revealed to you the secret of secrets. I give you the freedom of action, you do whatever you want. I was addressing a Gita conference in Cochin several years back. Before an audience of very erudite people, I didn't know how to talk about Gita. So I left talking about the text of Gita. I spoke about the context of Gita and said, this is a question in my mind. Why Krishna did not give freedom of action to Arjuna in the first chapter? Why did he give him only in the 18th chapter, almost at the end? The answer that came to my mind was that a confused man does not deserve freedom. So he removed his freedom and gave him freedom of action. In the confused society, you have to attract people, and that is the miracle which Swami did. Miracle was the beginning of Swami, but many people ended with the miracles of Swami. This is how I analyzed how he produced this huge committed cadre, an unbelievable amount of work, which is not just charity. Charity can't do it. You can donate money, you can't do the work. You can't lay 2,500 kilometers of pipelines, construct 1,200 overhead tanks, 130 large reservoirs, many of them in high and low-end areas, and in 18 months provide water to 3 districts and 20 lakh people in a manner unknown. The Planning Commission normally does not take notice of good things done by the society. But the Planning Commission took notice of it and said it is an unbelievable work. This cannot be done by mere charity. This cannot be done by mere donation. It requires a motivation of a very high order. You have to make man, an ordinary man, a superman to do it. And create a team. Weld the people's mind together on one focused point. Yes, this is your duty, sense of duty. God came as a teacher for Arjuna. And Arjuna did not know he was God. And God came as a teacher for all of us. And all of you particularly. You have all experienced him very intensely. This is a great fortune of all of us, that God came as a teacher. There is no way you can define or describe or understand or experience God, except when you see God. And you can't see God. And so you can only see someone who is God. And as the young man who introduced Swamiji's familiarity and erudition with music said, when that Swami said that I see he said it was the message of God, but Swami said it is God himself. It requires a very, very higher understanding about everything for someone to say this. It's not a declaration, it's an admission. So now we are all in this ancient and great land. And what is this? That this land has a continuity of such great men. And our ambition, our prayer is that he will be born again. He will be with us again in flesh and blood. He is with us. But he will be with us in the form in which we can see, experience, hear him singing again. So how is it that it is happening only in this country? This is the question which all of us have to address. What is the mission of India? What is its vision? What is its responsibility to the world? The world looks a very, very complex and a tottering phenomenon today. As someone who studies these subjects very deeply, economics, politics, society, culture, traditions, families, gender relations, I am aghast at where the world is moving. There is no anchor. There is no particular ideology or thought system which has lived beyond 30 years in the last 150 years. Every thought which has shattered the world, reconstructed it, deformed it in the name of reformation, has not lasted beyond 30 years or 40 years. But in this country, every thought has been received and every thought has been handled. But there is something which is permanent, sustaining, going, continuing. Swami says, it is the land of sages and saints and rishis. A fortune that is denied to any other country in the world. And sometimes God comes as avatar. Krishna was never recognized as avatar in the entire Bharata. Everyone knew, but no one would admit, nor Krishna would admit. Rama was never seen as an avatar in Ramayana. God came and wandered and played with us. In Tamil Nadu, there are stories that God played with us. God got beaten up. God was with us. We played with him. We could laugh at him. We could be his friend. What is it in this land? Swami says it is the Guru of all nations. For him the world is one. Everyone is same for him. Every nation is same for him. But he says this nation is the Guru of all nations. He cannot be untrue. He has to be true. He is Sathya. Unless we set on an inquiry as to why does he credit this land with this great quality of being the preceptor of the world, there is something in it. The greatest and the profoundest message. I am going to link the theory to the practice now as to what Swami says on Sanatana Dharma. This is the profoundest message of India. It looks very simple. But how bereft of this message where the world is going, once you compare these two different paradigms, and one working here and the other devastating the world, then we will understand this message and the purpose of India and the responsibility of all of us, not only to ourselves but to the entire humanity. Now I look at what Swami talks on Sanatana Dharma. It is very simple, and I have taken every component of it. Sanatana Dharma includes dharma, but we must look at what is Sanatana Dharma. It looks a very, very simple formulation. Sanatana Dharma is the only religion, because for the inadequacy of English, the only word we can use is religion. Sanatana Dharma is the only religion that declares there is no religion that can be labeled as the one and only religion. This was the highest, greatest, profoundest, deepest, and the truthful message that this nation gave. There is no one and only. It declares that all religions are but facets of the one truth, that all names are names of God, that all forms are but His forms. No religion can claim to represent fully the universal eternal truth. It requires such a simple formulation, but once a religion claims to represent the only truth, which means all others are false, see the devastation it causes. Just a small variation. And he talks about dharma. Sanatana Dharma rests on Samanya Dharma. Dharma is a body of principles that are fundamental to social stability and individual progress. Give me 10 minutes, I will prove every word of this from my empirical understanding of the society, nations, economy. Social stability and individual progress. Dharma means certain obligations and duties and regulations over actions, words, and behavior. Next two sentences constitute the core of the truth which this ancient civilization has taught from generation to generation, which the West has denied itself and has got into ruin. That's what I'm going to tell you. Elders have certain obligations towards the youth, as young men have towards elders. Even war has to be carried on under some rules of decency and humanity. It is not only ordinary, peaceful times you observe certain principles of ethics, morality, behavior, conduct. But even in war, where everything is supposed to be fair, there also dharma prevails. Is it something which utopian? Something which is out of the world? I am going to tell you a stunning historical study done by one Whiteway, who wrote on the war between the Portuguese and the Mohammedan kings in the 16th and 17th century in Kerala, that what happened in Mahabharata, that both the sides will have friendly relationship, share coffee and tea together, and inquire about each other, sleep by the side of each other. In the morning, they'll draw apart and fight with each other. This, we thought, is an artificial rule. Will it work? I am going to now read out to you what Whiteway says about what happened in Kerala when the Mohammedan kings had a fight with. Madhava Menon writes in the history of Kerala, taking the extracts from Whiteway's book. There were neither night fighting nor ambuscades. No war which surprises the enemy is an ethical war. No ambuscades. All fighting was in the daytime, when the sun had well risen, and the opposing camps were either pitched near each other, both sides slept securely. As the sun rose, soldiers of both the army mingled at the tank, put on their armor, ate their rice, chewed their betel, gossiped, and chatted together. It is Mahabharata lived in the 17th century. At the beat of the drum, each side drew apart and formed its ranks. It was creditable to first beat the drums, to say, I am ready for war. But you won't attack unless the other side also beats the drum. This is what Swami called as, even in war, there was ethics in this country. Non-combatants were never attacked. Even someone who dropped the weapon, he was considered to be a non-combatant. An injured man was considered to be patient. It is in Rig Veda, it is in Mahabharata. In the war models of ancient India, V.R. Ramchandra Iyer describes the ethical warfare. And he calls Ashoka's Kalinga war as unethical. That was the extent. When Swami says this, see how true it was. Behaviorally, on the ground. But you must understand how we lost that ethics. Whiteaway says, this artificial system broke down very quickly under the stress of fighting against the Portuguese. He calls it artificial. We call it ethical. Thus, it was always been the custom of Sovereign to sound trumpet. And in 1536, he nearly surprised the Portuguese by abandoning the custom suddenly. When an inferior civilization attacks you, the superior civilization too becomes inferior. This is the message. We have got to rise above this and preserve this. And only in 1897, the world came together first in Hague and decided that non-combatants should not be attacked, women should not be attacked, children should not be attacked. War prisoners should be treated properly. 1897. When Swami says that even in war, human values are needed, he doesn't say something theory. It was practiced in this country. And now let us take the issue of what he says, that the elders should take care of the youngsters and the youngsters should take care of the elders. What does it mean? It looks so simple. But imagine it does not happen, what will happen to a society? We can look at the West. And there are demonstrable decline, not in the society, in culture, in behavior, in family, in morals, but in economics. How the economy declined. That will show how important it is that we remind ourselves of this. Now, in the West, a completely different paradigm took over. Rights. It is my right. Individual rights, elders' rights, children's rights, animals' rights, women's rights. The very contradistinction to dharma, which implied a high sense of duty and mutual obligations. The West respects the individual rights. Dharma respects the other individual's rights. Respecting other individuals' rights is your duty. And that is what makes the society functional. Now, see the decline. In America and in most Western countries today, half the children are born for unwed mothers. Half of them are born for school-going children. Newt Gingrich, who was the equivalent of the Lok Sabha Speaker, the Senate Chairman, he said, when 12-year-olds take guns and shoot each other, when 14-year-olds become pregnant, 16-year-olds get HIV positive, and 18-year-olds get diplomas and degrees which they cannot read. What kind of civilization are we producing? This is the lament of someone where the society is deviating from the natural law of dharma. See what happens. In 1960, the ratio of family savings to total savings in America was 80%. In the third quarter of 2006, it becomes minus 20%. 30 crore Americans have 120 crore credit cards. 11 crore families have 120 crore credit cards, on which they owe $3 trillion debt. From a nation which was the banker of the world, it has become the greatest borrower of the world today. It didn't happen because of economic policies. It happened because of decline of families. And 51% of the American families are single-parent families where the father and the mother do not live together, or there is no father at all. In 1998, an American sociologist wrote a book that we are emerging as a fatherless nation. People do not marry. Obama has constituted in 2012 a national marriage project to persuade people to marry. They don't want to marry. This chaos is because the mutuality of obligations is forgotten. Everybody is an isolated, atomized, selfish individual. Economics says collective individual selfishness produces greater prosperity. Yes, it has produced, but it has also produced the greatest destruction. This is what Swami said, and he says very, very clearly what is the responsibility of the relationship between parents and children. He says, respect for parents who started your life and brought you into this world to gather the vast and varied treasures and experience is the first lesson Dharma teaches. It is not just a good quality. It's not just a virtue. It's not just a value. It is not something for which you should feel happy you are doing it. It is a compulsive social, economic, political, and necessity which sustains the social order. Take India. There are 80 crore Indians who are dependent on 45 crore Indians as parents, as infirm, as unemployed. There are 8 crore Indian youths who are unemployed. The family, the parents, the near and dear take care of them. It doesn't happen in America. It happens in none of the Western countries. The state has to take care of them. When the family collapses, the burden passes on to the state. When dharma collapses, society is burdened, state is burdened. So it is not simply a virtue. The failure of dharma has a devastating impact on the state. Savings collapses. See India. In 1990, we had a savings to GDP ratio of 21-22%. It went up to 37%. It shook the world because India is the only country which has grown so much and which has become almost the candidate for being the global power in 2030, according to the National Intelligence Council of America's report in 2012. It has become the candidate to be one of the 3 major world powers in 2012. What Swami would have loved, worked, prayed to happen, it is happening today. In December 2012, on the 12th of December, the National Intelligence Council of America came out with a report that there is going to be only 3 major world powers, superpowers, in 2030, America, China, and India. Even if Indian government doesn't want it, even if the Indian political system doesn't work for it, even if the media works against it, this is going to happen. You know why? That is the destiny of India. In fact, Swami says at one point, I am really surprised, how clear he was about the role of the state. To propagate human values, it is advisable to keep as far away as possible from powers that be, which means government. It is not possible to promote sacred values through the help of government authorities. The government authorities can only do the reverse. They cannot marry people. They can pass law to separate people. They cannot keep families united, but they can pass laws to say partition suits can be filed. They cannot make husband and wife live together. They can separate them. They cannot make duties compulsory. They can make rights compulsory. This is what Swami says. A higher education is needed to internalize duty, to live duty. It's not an ordinary task. It requires extraordinary submission of the self to obey parents, to understand, to empathize. Aparigraha niraham bhavana. This is what the Kanchi Mahaswami told Jawaharlal Nehru in 1957. Aparigraha, contentment, niraham bhavana, humility. This constitutes the foundation of Indian civilization, and this is the foundation for any civilization. Any civilization which forsakes these 2 qualities causes havoc. I want all of you to go through one website built by one Ramal, a Hawaii University professor, and the website is called Democide. And he has said in the last 2,000 years how killings have taken place in different parts of the world. 1.4 billion people have been killed. You know the number of people killed in India? Till 13th century, it was less than 2 lakhs. Only from 13th century, 4.5 million. when outside invaders came here and rattled our society. But even then it is so less. Thousands of wars. It's an oasis of peace. Today, you go through a website which gives the relative crime rates of different countries called the nationmaster.com. It gives, and you will be stunned that in terms of robbery, in terms of murder, in terms of other types of homicide, India is the lowest crime rate nations in the world. The truth is, we have not understood India. See what Swami says. He laments. It is unfortunate that many in the sacred land are not aware of its greatness of yesterday or today or its importance tomorrow. That's what he means. Love of the mother is a sweet virtue. What a pity today, love of motherland should have declined. This he spoke in 1990. And he expressed the view, next, she was once the guru of humanity, let us assume that role again. When India was a borrower, it was pledging his gold. Today, the National Intelligence Council of America rates India as the emerging global power. In 1990, Swami says, let us assume that role again. Do we produce youngsters of that competence, understanding, skill, confidence? It is the duty of the elders. 2 generations of elders have failed this country. It is a monotonous failure. The youngsters need to understand it today. Your education is fortunately not limited to classrooms, blackboards, and textbooks. The universe is on your computer. Truth comes through the computer today. You will be stunned. Everything that is suppressed by the greatest mighty liars of the world, the computer reveals today. That is what is going to make India great. Truth. Truth about India, true understanding about India, true knowledge about India, true role of India. This is what Swami wants. India has to rise in the interest of the world. I will conclude my speech with the experience of Swami Vivekananda. He traveled across the country between 1889 and 1991, where he saw hunger, poverty, illiteracy. Between 1880 and 1900, India witnessed 23 large famines. Almost 30 million people died in this 20-year period. And he goes to America and delivers a message. Here is a civilization, a culture, a religion, which will save the world from bigotry and violence. What kind of confidence that young man of 30, he was just 30. That was the first speech he delivered. He never spoke in public before that. And he lost 2.5 minutes of that 5 minutes by calling sisters and brothers of the United States of America. 2.5 minutes, there was only clapping. He had only 2.5 minutes. You know how many words he spoke? Just 471 words. He turned the perception of the world. He gave them a different paradigm. And in 1897, he came back to India and said, I know everything is bleak. The country has lost its confidence. It has become celebrating the adversary. He said, but I am seeing something, a vision. And the vision is not my dream, because I am not a dreamer. I don't believe in astrology for future predictions. What I am seeing is reality. As much as I am seeing you, the audience, he said, I am seeing this vision. That Bharat Mata is sitting on the throne and ruling this world as Jagat Guru. Precisely what Swami said in 1990, and it is happening today. Let us internalize this great culture, tradition, value systems, which not only saves us, our economy, our society, our social order. You know, we have 668,000 villages and towns. We have only 12,800 police stations. When I told this in Johns Hopkins University in America, they were stunned. Still the lowest crime-rated nations in the world because of respect for parents, respect for elders. My neighbors have corrected me. They have slapped me and corrected me. The society has a right to correct you. You have no individual right to delegitimize the society. That is dharma. We have to preserve this great heritage. It can be destroyed, but it cannot be recouped. The state can destroy, the court can destroy this. They cannot create it. This has to be created by great men who will be born time and again. They were born. That is our hope. Thank you very much.